Is this as when you were entering a stage for a REM concert, or is it much easier?
This is much harder.
It's harder?
Yeah.
Good. How come?
I know your reputation. For me, performing with the band was like breathing. There was never any stress or anxiety attached to it. Standing up at a table of 8 of my closest friends to wish someone a happy 40th birthday and raise a glass I go into panic attacks.
Right.
So this is very difficult, but I'm thrilled to be here,
Okay.
and particularly thrilled to be here with my great friend Doug.
Welcome to both of you to Heartland Festival.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
What about you, Doug? I mean, is this like when you were, starting a new novel?
Oh.
First blank page, and you have no idea what to write?
When an idea for a novel happens inside your head, it's like getting pregnant. It's like, oh, there's the novel. And then it takes about a year and a half to get it out. I will say, I spent, before the internet in the 1990s, an incredible amount of time in bookstores doing readings. And the thing about a bookstore is something always goes wrong. It'll be espresso machines, road traffic, noise, alarm systems, babies, rude people going through or whatever. And it's nice to be in a setting like this where nothing could possibly go wrong.
Good, okay. You look so nice together. So nice together, I have to tell you. I mean, you really suit each other. I'm sure a lot of people, most people here know you, individually and so on, and your music and your books and so on, but together, where did you first meet?
Oh, you know the date, right? Is it January 20th?
January 20th, 1993, at the first Bill Clinton inaugural ball, the MTV ball. And I was like, oh, look, oh my God, it's Michael Stipe. So, oh my God, like that. And this friend of mine, Farai, she's like, oh, like, here, I'll introduce you. And it's the worst thing you can do to anyone. It's like, grabs you and says, like, you two should meet. And I was just like so mortified. And I'm sure you were thinking, like, what a dick. So, yeah.
I was thrilled because I was being chased around the event by the former wife of Arnold Schwarzenegger. What is her name?
Oh,
she's a journalist. She's actually very smart, and she's a good person, but she was a little manic that night. And at one point, she grabbed me by the necktie, pulled me down. I was standing on a platform, pulled me down, and said, "You will do an interview with me." And I said, "Unhand me, woman." I will.
Right.
And then Doug's friend came in and went, "Come meet Douglas Copeland."
But so you meet and you really like
Maria
each other?
Shriver. Her name is Maria Shriver.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. Okay. First wife, maybe second.
Former, I don't know, who cares?
So you've been talking ever since, really. You met there and you've been speaking to each other. What are you talking about? What's the center of your conversation?
Well, I mean, it started very simple. I love your work. I love your work. You're amazing. You're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not applaudable, really. Thank you. That's very generous, but it's too generous.
How did you just do that? Give him a big applause again, and let's see if he can do it again. Come on.
what?
We
I like this.
never do anything like
Applauding
that.
him, not me.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, he's the big star. All right. 1991, a very interesting year. The Soviet Union collapsed. As you remember, freedom fighters all over Eastern Europe were elected, leaders of their countries. It was a year of optimism, a year of change. History ended. People really felt that anything could happen in 1991. It was also the year that you came out with Out of Time. and you, Doug, published Generation X. To me, it was also the year Freddie Mercury died. It was a really shitty year that way, and I was 20, I was confused, I had big dreams, and I didn't have any clue about what to do with them. What is the difference between 1991 and today, basically?
Wow, that's good.
Well, I'd say that the big difference is this. I mean, that's changed everything. I think the 20th century was about making big changes in the outer world with, railways, roads, construction, what have you. And the 21st century is all about changes inside our heads, and I think that's the big difference. I think if someone were to walk around anywhere in Denmark today, just time traveling, it looks kind of like 1991, except everyone's doing this. What do you think the big change would be?
Well, I mean, that was a year of great change, and I think artists responded to that by creating work that was challenging, and I would include in that what my band had done and what Douglas did. I would agree entirely. I mean, I think the digital revolution has drawn sharp divisions, not only generationally, but in terms of worldview, how people think, how they approach themselves, how they approach the idea of a nation state or a country, how they approach relationships with other people.
How they approach themselves, what does that mean?
What?
Louder.
You
Louder.
can't hear us? I'm talking as loud as I possibly can.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that better? Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
You said that one of the things that changed is the way people look at themselves, approach themselves. How?
Ego. It's what we're here to talk about, really. It's how the 21st century has presented us with an entirely different idea of who we are and how we present ourselves publicly. You don't have to be a public figure anymore to be a public figure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of how you view oneself, we've got a number of dynamics happening at the same time. I think everybody wants the right to be forgotten, but at the same time you want to be remembered for everywhere with your blog or your this or your that. So that makes you kind of schizo. I think that I'm old enough to remember growing up in a world where you're a product of enlightenment in the process of creating a better world. And now it's like, oh, I'm just one more human being out of 7.5 billion human beings. It's just sort of a leveling influence. And then there are these crazy things called selfies, which kind of took over the planet.
Right. Let's see a little thing. It's called iPhoto Screen Snaps, and you sent it to me, Mike, a few days ago. Let's see that. That's really. It's already on. What's going on, Mike?
This is 2009. I had a dog who was very, very old, and I was called back to the town in Georgia where my family lived to help her die. It was clear that she had a week to live. I arrived into Athens, and she was so happy to see me that she lived for another 6 months. So, which was a blessing to be able to help her into death. But I live in New York and Berlin. I'm hyperactive. I require a great deal of stimulus, and I had not very much this summer. It was quite boring. And so I started taking pictures of myself as I was going to bed every night, getting undressed, brushing my teeth, plugging in my cell phone next to the bed. And I put them...
So this is at home in front of in your bathroom.
That's my bathroom, yeah.
Let's see it again while we talk.
Okay.
So that was, selfies, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. It's kind of it is a selfie, yeah. But I think of it more as a self-portrait. So there's a division between what is a selfie and what is not a selfie. But I was also 49 years old. I was about to turn 50. There might be some degree of midlife crisis happening here. As a public figure, I felt like it's inevitable that at some point a nude image of me is going to show up online, so I may as well do it myself. And I didn't want to throw it out there just as a dick pic, because that's uninteresting. So I just took all these different, I tend to think like Andy Warhol in a series. So I took this series of images and then I just spun them together into an endless GIF.
What is it with this selfie? You mentioned it also as a brand. It's really a new thing. It's a big step. I don't know where to, but it is a big step. I mean, we didn't go around taking pictures of ourselves all the time before. What is in it?
The science behind the selfie is that when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're using a certain part of your brain, say back there. But if you look at a photograph of yourself, or you turn the page in the paper and there's your face, it goes to an absolutely different part of the brain. And actors have known this for centuries, that if you can make a superhighway between that part of the brain and the other, you can become a very, very good actor, because you're able to fake whatever it is you have to do for the role you're playing. So there's some science behind it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sort of surprised it took as long as it did for the selfies to become a thing.
Yeah.
They should have happened a lot earlier, actually.
So there is science and biology behind why we're doing it. What do you think? Why do you think people go around taking pictures of themselves all the time?
Well, it's obvious. You have this thing in your pocket, and suddenly you can take a picture of anything. The one thing that is always there is you. And we all want to look great. And we all want people to think that we look great. So you can take a picture and kind of check your teeth and make sure that your hair looks good.
But this is also, of course, connected. This is why we're talking about it. Connected to the theme that you chose for this talk, ego. You wrote a great novel called Generation X, of course, where there was a lot of discussion about, a lot of talk about ego and narcissism and individualism and identity and so on. But is this really different, or is it just technology?
Well, ego is almost an extinct word. I mean, we've been asking people, we're talking about the ego in the year 2017. They're like, what? Like, people still have egos? And in this
ego trip.
Ego in the 70s, they're on an ego trip, or she's on an ego trip or whatever. And I think it's maybe taking an old word, dusting it off and figuring out what it now means. And it does mean selfies, and it means overposting on Facebook, sharing too much information, what have you. So it's just a reinflection of something people used to do in a different way.
Right. Okay. So when you look at this new generation posting clips, videos, photos, everything about themselves all the time, how is it different from the generation that you sort of defined in your work?
I think we used to send postcards when we went somewhere, and now I don't even know if they make postcards. You had very, very little access to information, nothing. I mean, imagine going to 1991 and saying, in 2017, you can have the answer to any question you ever want to ask, free, instantaneously, anywhere on earth, without judgment. I mean, you'd say, wow, that has to surely be the golden age of humanity. Are you serious? That can be possible? And yet, here we are, and what do? We're like, next. And we just want the next wave of tech.
Swipe.
Through.
Swipe.
Yeah. Yes.
You said when we talked before that an absence of shame has replaced ego.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, shame is a very low emotion, and I associate it with Catholicism because I'm not Catholic, but I carry amounts of, regret is a low emotion, jealousy is a low emotion, envy is a low emotion, shame is a low emotion. They're way down here, and their intention is to bring us down. To ignore that is to make yourself a better person, I believe. Well, shamelessness is... I had a conversation, of all places, in the Viper Room in Los Angeles years ago, very late at night, with Dennis Rodman, the basketball player, who loved dressing up and putting on makeup and doing all these transgressive things to freak out basketball fans. And he did a great job of that. But at this point, he was no longer playing basketball, and he told me that he was going to start a TV show, which it was a new idea. It was like a reality TV show. And I was like, well, why would you do that? Like, you're really great, and you're really cool, and you don't want to do that, really. And he's like, yeah, I mean, why not? Because I can do it. Or, I don't remember exactly how the conversation came about, but what he was proposing was going from something that he was really brilliant at to something that was nothing. And I said, it's not enough to be famous for being famous. And he said, yes, it is. And I said, no, you're wrong. Well, as it turns out, he was right. It is enough in 2017 to be famous just for being famous. And there's, I think, a degree of shame involved in that. I worked very hard to put myself in a position where a room full of people like yourselves would be interested in hearing what I had to say. Why you're here, I can't say. But I took, and Douglas, I think you would say the same about the arc of your career. When we're looking at selfies and the difference between a selfie in 2017 and a self-portrait in 1991, there's a lot of difference.
Yeah. I've got a question.
Yeah.
We're both sort of relative captains of industry. We've both got names, but you've got the face. And so when you go anywhere, I mean, I even here watching you go through, there's like that response. How have you reconciled the fact that you've got to live with this for the next 50, 60, 70 years?
Well, the part of it that's really difficult is that people remember me at the age that they first fell in love with REM. And so when they see me, they're shocked because I look like Father Time. And I mean, part of 2017 is that we're all taking pictures of ourselves, but we're also running it through filters, and we're lighting ourselves in a special way. And none of us want to acknowledge that we are getting older as the people that we admire get older. And that's something that's very difficult, I think, for the human ego to take.
Right.
No matter what century you're in. I wanted to talk about narcissism. You mentioned narcissism, and I think that that's a really interesting, because I feel like, and I really do not want to talk about this very much, but the term narcissist has been thrown around a lot in American politics in the past, let's say year. But at some point I had to look, I mean, I feel like, and Doug and I have talked about this a lot, as a very public figure, known for one certain thing and then other things that I'm doing now. I somehow am able to contain both a massive ego and complete egolessness.
That's totally you. I mean, but you have no ego. So what does that mean? How do you do that?
Well, of course I have an ego, but it's over there. I think I'm able to separate myself from it and see it as something that other people see. I don't know. Maybe I need to give that more thought.
I think maybe.
I know I'm not a narcissist.
You're talking about a certain person.
We're talking about Donald Trump, of course. I won't say his name again. In my.
You mentioned his name just now.
Well, I said it out loud because Most people here probably speak English as a second language. But he is currently the 45th President of the United States. My friends and I, in referring to politics in America, refer to that person as 45. So as not to add, even in a negative way, and Andy Warhol said there's no such thing as bad.
Okay, but we just have to talk just for a minute or two about what's that about, the connection between the phenomenon of ego in our times and this. Let's just say hello briefly to the guy, the president that we are talking about. Can we run that clip?
Uh-oh.
Not talk too much, grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come now, follow my lead. Come now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room. And now my bed sheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with your body. Oh, I'm in love with your body. Oh, I'm in love with your body. Oh, I'm in love with your body.
Okay. Nobody up here was laughing.
I just threw up in my mouth like 3 times. That song kind of irritates me because what about the mind? Who sung it? I'm in love with your mind. That's a much more romantic thing to say.
What is the connection between the role of ego, the narcissism, the selfies, the technology, and that guy?
Narcissism, the definition of narcissism is someone who is not aware that they are in love with themselves. I think that has changed with the advent of digital technology, and the definition is shifting to include people who are completely aware that they're in love with themselves, but they're presenting that in a way that is absolutely contemporary and perhaps a little bit frightening.
Mm-hmm. I am very ambivalent to admit in public that I was actually watching Donald 45's reality show for 2 seasons on TV. And it was really great. And I just can imagine all the things they didn't include in it. So when I saw almost the identical dynamic and process, I thought, oh, you know what? It's probably going to happen. And it happened. A very, very strange election night. I remember that. Where were you on election night?
New York. I voted in New York. Yeah.
Okay.
Sucked.
I know.
I went into a movie. I went to see Professor Strange. Who's the Strange? Benedict Cumberbatch plays Professor. What is it? Thank you. I'm not a. I haven't read comic books since 1971, but Doctor Strange. When it looked like it was going in the wrong direction, we were like, let's just go catch a movie. This sucks.
But we're talking about this phenomena you're talking about this, you're giving him a number almost as if it's something that will go away and not come back.
Well, hopefully
ever.
there will be a 46th president of the United States.
There will be another one. And
hopefully.
But the combination of the factors that you're talking about might produce another one just like him.
Say that again.
And the combination of technology, narcissism, reality TV,
Oh, well,
modern culture might create another one.
I think that what is happening here is that we have these really astonishing new technologies, and we're really only now figuring out how to work with them. And so I was in Germany when the Brexit happened, the vote, and of course everyone woke up that morning like, oh my God. And I think in a weird way, I think democracy needs a morning after pill, or that you. Thank you. You know, and it does become a question. Okay, if after the first Brexit vote, it's like, oh God, what the hell were we thinking? They had another one a week later. Would it be a different result, or would it be the same results, just with more votes? And then, how do you have a third vote? And then it gets out of control. And I think a lot of people came away from that experience thinking like, oh boy, like you only get one vote. It only happens once. And I think people are going to be a lot more careful in how they use that vote in the future. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, Brexit and also what happened in the U.S. was a reaction to the status quo and in the U.S. to Washington and the idea of this career politician who is so out of touch with the American people that we're going to vote for the wild card. And we saw that on the left and the right. On the left, obviously, with the rise of Bernie Sanders, who I supported.
If Bernie Sanders had run in Canada, he would have won instantly. Like, just not even a question. He would have won. Yeah.
And we just saw the same thing in France with Macron and Le Pen. Both represent themselves as people who are not a part of the two main parties, and they were the ultimate choice.
But couldn't you say that wouldn't it be quite fair to say actually that a guy like Donald Trump, in combination with modern technology, is giving people, maybe he's right, he is giving people a voice, he's giving people an outlet for frustration, anger.
No, not at this cost, I'm sorry.
Well,
yes.
But yes, maybe not. Maybe the cost seems high, but that's not his fault, is it?
I didn't want to talk about him in the first place, so let's move on from that. But I do feel like whatever. This is we've all read this article a few times. He just knows how to manipulate media, and he really is a creation of media. We're watching the world's biggest and most frightening and most, in a way, entertaining reality TV show happen in real time. The stakes are too high. This is no longer.
All right.
This is no longer entertainment. This is no longer something that you tune into between 6 and 7 and 8 o'clock on a Thursday night. It's not funny anymore.
I think when we do a little, thing like this with this video, someone put together that song and Donald Trump, of course, it's obvious that you don't find it funny. It's obvious that you think that any publicity for this guy is bad. It makes you think of Andy Warhol's point that there's no such thing as bad publicity. And you think that's true for this guy?
I think this proves it.
Yeah.
It's Dick Cheney, the former vice president, did kind of the same thing where he shot his best friend in the face as the vice president. And rather than any kind of public apology or any kind of like stepping back from this, or he pinned it to his chest like a badge of honor.
Yes.
Look at what a badass I am.
Right.
Well, you're not a badass. You're stupid. I mean, that's a dumb thing to do.
But so let's jump back and let's forget about American politics for a while, and then talk about this technology and culture that we were talking about, where people feel obliged to tell everybody how they feel right now. Maybe you can explain this. Maybe you can explain, Doc. What I really don't understand. What makes people constantly write a little text with a picture of their wife or their kids saying, Melanie, 10 years after, I still love you. But not to her, to everybody. Or my son, whoever, I'm so proud of you, and a little picture of an 11-year-old boy. I mean, what sense does it make? I simply do not understand why people are doing that.
I mean, everybody.
I mean, because probably half of you is doing it all the time. Why are they doing it all the time?
Well, I think that everyone wants their life to have meaning. I think everyone wants to live inside a community. Everyone wants to be remembered forever.
Why do you want everybody every day to know that you love your wife still?
I personally, Twitter and Facebook, it makes my life feel like homework. And so I really don't go on it very much. Are you, you're big on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram haltingly, kind of as a joke, and I've quit it twice, I think, and came back to it. I've never been on Facebook. I'm not interested in it. I've never been on Twitter. I was at when they had a launch party, I was at the party. It was one of the first things that anyone ever tweeted about. As it turns out, Michael Stipe just walked in, and my friend said, watch this, and he went, hit send, and I'm like, what are we watching? And everyone went, bzzzt, and then they all looked up and started going like this.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's fascinating. Where's it gonna, like, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
We were having dinner with Werner Herzog 2 nights ago, and he was asking, like, are you on social media? And I go, a little bit. Like, well, what about you? Like, no, it's just not my thing. But he said there are 10 or 12 fake Werner Herzogs out there who write all these really weird things about him. And they'll even put their name down as the writer.
Yeah.
But people still believe it about Werner Herzog. It's, I mean, I think there was 1 or 2 fake me's. There must be a lot of fake yous out there.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
But how does it affect people, do you think? I mean, Mike, you remember, of course, the song Supernatural, Super Serious.
Yeah.
It was your second last album.
Yeah.
2008,
I think. Yeah.
And the text is, you remember Supernatural, Super Serious? You do?
It's one of my favorite songs.
Is it?
But yeah, actually.
Oh, okay.
I didn't tell you earlier.
Okay, so maybe you can join me. It goes, at the summer camp where you volunteered, no one saw your face, no one saw your fear. If that apparition had just appeared, took you up and away from this base and sheer humiliation.
Those are great lyrics. I can say that as a joke, but I really believe it as well. And so there you have the ego.
It's about being a teenager. It's a teenager who volunteers to join a summer camp.
Yeah.
And about the feelings of this person, it's about humiliation and fear. And it goes, the humiliation of your teenage station, nobody cares, no one remembers, and nobody cares.
Yeah.
That's really, in short, how it is to be a teenager.
Yeah.
It's not like that anymore, is it? Or how did that change?
It changed because now you have a much larger audience than in the song. It's 1973. It's vaguely autobiographic. We weren't on social media. These things did not exist. And so if I humiliated myself in a circle of 7 people who came together to do a seance to raise the ghost of Harry Houdini, and I had this epiphanal moment where I see the specter of Harry Houdini, and I go, he's alive, he's alive, he's alive. And I burst into tears, and everyone's like, what is your problem? He's really stupid. Maybe those 7 people would go and tell 7 other people, and that was it.
Right.
Now, it goes out to your entire list of followers.
I mean, is it the same seance where you tried to bring back the ghost of John F. Kennedy?
Yes.
And I thought, well, even in heaven, John F. Kennedy's probably got a pretty busy schedule. It's like, oh, Mr. Kennedy, sir, there's a 11-year-old teenager in some small town in Texas that would like you to come down and visit their seance. Like, okay. Even in heaven being busy.
Some of you, one of you, I don't remember who mentioned this T-shirt. It's called Teen up there with you. Let's see it. It's about being in your 50s and wearing this specific T-shirt. Where is it? Here.
Oh,
How embarrassing.
That guy is not in his 50s, obviously, so that's cheating anyway.
I had this T-shirt. It said, "I miss my pre-internet brain," which that was 8 years ago. Now I don't even remember it. But we put them on some teenage fashion models, and it just became ridiculous because they don't have a pre-internet brain. And then it's like, oh, well, what do they have? And one thing that's happening on a global level is neural homogenization. And that because we're all using the same technologies with the same interfaces, we actually have a lot in common now with people who would never have had that much in common with. And I mean, the big divisions now seems to be PC or Mac. And if you live in a small cave in that rural Mongolia, you can still shop for Calvin Klein towels or something. There is a sort of flattening influence that's happening in the world. And if you look back, we're both of us big fans and readers of Andy Warhol and his works. And I mean, he kind of got things right a long time ago, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He was very prescient.
How is it to, I mean, at one point, obviously both of you were not just around the center of your generation. You were the center of your generation. When? Mid 80s? Something like that?
Oh.
End 80s? You were, if someone had to, were asking, give me a person or a few persons who are, the center of their generation in popular culture. You would be the ones.
I think being a member of a generation is embarrassing.
What?
Being a member of a generation is
it?
Embarrassing.
Is it
yeah, I when I wrote that book, I thought there were maybe 6 people on Earth who might understand it. I felt like I was documenting a language that was dying or a culture that was dying. And I'm still surprised that that or anything else ever resonates with people. Andy Warhol also said that you should never get something that you want. You should get it after you wanted it or you didn't want it to begin with. So I didn't even want this thing, whatever it was. It's just like, oh God, I'm stuck with it.
Maybe Andy Warhol actually saw something and worked with something that is still with us and was in some kind of eternal. He influenced your work, both of you,
yes,
very much.
Very much.
And Andy Warhol. How?
By the way, I never met him, but you did.
I met him. Yeah.
How'd it go?
He told me I was cute.
He was hitting on you, right?
He was hitting on me.
Yeah, okay.
I was very flattered. I was cute. I was 26. I had just come through a year and a half. I had a complete emotional breakdown and went to some very dark places. And then I came through that and grew my hair and bleached it blonde. And I started wearing red makeup for eyebrows and a French beret hat. And that's what I looked like when I met Andy.
And your voice hadn't changed yet. So it was like,
My voice, well, it's...
Hello, Mr. Warhol. It's so nice to meet you, sir.
Well, it's before I realized that to be heard, I have to shout all the time. So since about 1988, I've been shouting when I talk. My actual speaking voice is, hold on, it's more like this. This is what I sounded like before 1988. And everyone's like, what is he saying? Who cares? So I started shouting, and I've been shouting ever since.
All right. Okay.
And it works.
Right.
Warhol told me I was cute. I said, thank you. He said, what do you do? And I said, I'm a singer in a band. And he said, oh, you're a pop star. And I said, no, I'm a singer in a band. And he said, you're a pop star. And I went,
yeah.
No,
Oh.
I'm a singer in a band. And he said, can I have your phone number?
Oh. Did he ever call?
So I said, sure.
Did he call?
I don't know, because I didn't have an answering machine. I couldn't afford one at the time. So he might have called. Who knows what direction my life would have gone in at that point. But We were photographed together by a friend.
What was it he was doing that influenced you?
Oh boy. I remember being 8 years old and looking in the World Book Encyclopedia, 1970, for something else. And under P was pop art, and there was a soup can and a Roy Lichtenstein jet being shot down. And like, that's it. I want that. I'm modeling my life on that. And it's never changed one bit. I like that he actively engages with popular culture, which is a taboo in the literary world. It's a taboo in much of the art world. But pop culture is what you live and breathe. Why not manipulate it and create something new with it?
I think he, in many ways, influenced more than just a generation of artists because of his prescience, because he really understood where culture was going before it got there. And his writing, his work, still resonates beyond the art world and the machinations of value of a painting. He is, I think, one of the most, easily, one of the most influential people of the 20th century.
Yeah. And
But he was before the new technology.
But I feel like his, that flatness that he had was showing us the way forward in a way. What we have now instead of egos or ego trips are this shattered idea of who we are, created to be presented to our public, whoever our public are. If you're a 12-year-old girl in grammar school, if you're, I get requests on Instagram from kids that are 9 and 10 years old. I don't know how they arrived at me, but there they are. And they have, I go and look, sometimes I'm like, wow, this kid has 200, 300, 400 pictures on Instagram.
What do you mean a shattered idea of who we are? I mean, the idea of who we are is shattered, isn't it? I mean, our identity is shattered.
Our reflection of what we are to ourselves is a reflection of how other people perceive us.
Yeah.
But it's how we choose to be perceived by them. So it's like back and forth and back and forth and back.
Yes. And if you're an artist, of course, or someone who wants to express yourself, it's much easier. It must have been much easier before, the new technology, because now you have outlets everywhere. I mean, nothing should be stopping you or is stopping you. You can just publish all the time. How does it affect art, do you think?
There's a lot of, go ahead.
Sorry. I was in Reykjavik, in Iceland, 3 summers ago, and this guy there says, well, Iceland is the most literate country on earth. Literally every person is literate, it can read. And he said, 1 in 10 Icelanders will write a novel in their lifetime. And I was like, wow, that's really kind of impressive. And he said, yes, but the problem is that it only has 9 readers. And I think in that sense, we are turning into a world of Icelandic novelists.
Yeah.
True.
That was a good line. Yeah. But it's because in my world we are asking in newspapers, we are asking ourselves all the time: is this new technology? Is it bad or good for quality? How that everybody can express themselves? Everybody is a journalist. Everybody is a medium. How is it in art? Is it better or worse that you have all these technological possibilities?
In terms of inspiration and in terms of tools, it's much easier and more fun with the technology that's available to make things. We both make things a lot. We're very, very busy with our hands. And the public maybe doesn't see a lot of that because it's not something that they really need to see. But it provides us with all these tools to create things that just keep a hyperactive mind busy. And those things lead to greatness sometimes to mediocrity, but we hope it leads to something that I would want to present to the public. I want to think about a different system. And this is an idea, and it's something that I read. There are two things. So one is about media and how information comes to us. And the other is about capitalism and how maybe we've arrived at a part of the arc of capitalism, which is somewhere near the end, where we are the ultimate commodity.
Product.
We are the ultimate product. Yeah. And this technology that we've created, it's like asking, did slow motion in film come before slow motion came to us in dreams? Or were we trying to recreate our dreams by creating cameras that could work in slow motion? Or did we never dream in slow motion until film? Well, maybe we're at that point in capitalism where we are the ultimate product, and this technology is simply supportive of that.
Well, I think it's about capitalism. It's also about democracy, in that we're now seeing, through votes, like in Turkey, for example, people saying, well, maybe you don't need democracy in order to be free. I mean, that was one of the great assumptions of the 20th century, is like, can't be free without democracy. And now people are rejecting democracy. And maybe that's another sort of final, late stage capitalism phenomena. And, you end up as a completely atomized individual, a seed, an information bathtub, or what have you. It's, I'm an optimist too, but I do think we have a bit more atomization to go as individuals. And the big question of the 21st century is the internet going to favor the individual, or is it going to favor the mob, or maybe some hyper object we don't know that even exists yet? And I think right now we're going back and forth. Like Arab Spring, yay, and then like
one of your sentences from your ideas of the 21st century is called "shedding democracy might be necessary." Shedding democracy,
yes,
might be a good thing, or might be necessary. What do you mean by that? Because it sounds quite alarming.
It was along with a number of other statements about democracy that you can either accept or reject, but there's certainly ideas that are out there. I've just noticed about the world that the stupider an idea is, the easier it is to believe it. And I don't know, it's like this stupid part of our humanity that we just accept the dumbest ideas as true. And I think democracy is one of the best ideas we've ever had. And God, if you lose that, what are you going to have? But maybe we should brace ourselves for that. So you're super political.
What?
You're super political in a way that I'm not.
I'm super simple as well, though, in my understanding of good and bad and how things should be.
Yeah.
But as you said earlier, we're both I mean, I think part of the chemistry between us as lifelong friends is our ultimate optimism.
Okay, so let's round this up with a little film that you sent also, Mike. It's called IMG Movie, and then after we see it, you can explain what's in it. It's okay.
On the wall.
Okay,
What the hell was that?
Well,
that was Mike Stipe there doing that film. Not you actually in the film, but what is it about?
I thought Chrissy DHK was from Denmark because of the DK at the end, so it felt appropriate to me. I love it that we are at a place where technology provides us with the ability to do this, to be that guy or that they or that girl, however that person, however Chrissy defines him, her, they, self. I think the 21st century has given us not only this kind of shattering, and we all need to question what does this mean ultimately for us and for our children and for the next generation or for politics or for art. But the 21st century has given us the ability to look at shattering other things like what is gender, what is identity, who are we to ourselves if reflected in other people, or who are we to ourselves. I just love it that there's a freedom that allows Chrissy DHK to be Chrissy DHK. And I find that quite revolutionary. It's transgressive for sure. It's quite vulgar, but it's also funny and sweet, and it's a complete lack of ego that allowed Chrissy DHK to post this on YouTube.
Yeah.
And for me to then bring it to you.
But the conclusion for both of you is that you are optimistic in spite of what technology and new reality politics is giving us.
Well, I'll say we grew up in the exact same cultural moment. In the 1970s, any movie that talked about the future, it was a dystopian nightmare, polluted beyond all recognition, and it was relentless, probably just because it's cheaper and easier to make film sets look like a shitty future instead of a good future. So I thought 2000, like we were going to be living in just toxic stew, and it wasn't that bad. And then 2010, and things are actually really good right now, and they're getting better. I mean, we really are.
All right.
And where this whole festival is about better ideas.
Maybe we should end this celebrating that with taking a selfie of all of us and then say goodbye. So if you could just please stand up with me in the middle, and then I'm not sure how this works because I'm
I can show you.
Yeah. Here. Yeah. Okay, you take it.
Heads only, people only.
Like this. Say hello and wave. Great.
Oh, hang on there.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Michael Stipe and Douglas Copeland, everybody. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So,